welcome back to the 𝓞𝐼, and today is the first installment of my newest series, Sis, How Do You Grow Your Hair? And this was a recommendation of one of my Queen of Coils in the channel memberships. Is a series about all the long hair naturals and comparing their old regimens to their new regimens. And then what I thought to do is add a suggested regimen if you want to adopt that long hair naturals regimen. I think this is gonna be so fun. And the first person I wanted to do today was KimmayTube. And if you guys don't know, she really was my inspiration. From what I've heard, she actually has a online paid platform, so I'm glad she's still out there doing it, sharing her wisdom. I mean, I learned so much from her. I miss her so much. I feel like she should grace us with her presence at some point. She was so ahead of her time, and she was such a fresh example of the type of Black woman I would want like my daughters to look up to, because not only was she beautiful, but she was very smart, very intelligent, creative, innovative, and I love that. She was light years ahead of us on the YouTube in the natural hair space. She actually managed to grow her hair from teeny weeny afro to waist length by the time before she got off YouTube. I think it even went past her waist at some point. Let's start with the beginning, because I was a binger of her content, so I kind of remember everything. Of course, my recollection is going to be unreliable because it's all going off the top of my head, and your memory can be fuzzy at times. So I remember her natural hair journey like video series. She had like 6 or 7 or 8 parts, but she talked a lot about constantly relaxing her hair or doing a texturizer, I believe, and just wanting to be presentable to the world. She was young in her career, you know, trying to be out there in the corporate world and so on, and she just wanted to be presentable. And so she started to, you know, try different hairstyles. And I remember she got her hair to a point where it was really nice. I mean, it got kind of long, not long, but I would say it was like maybe ear chin length, and she ended up putting a texturizer in it. She said it did amuse her for a while, but then of course she missed her natural hair. So then she introduced 2 books that she had read. One was by 𝓜𝓾𝓼𝓲𝓬, or I can't remember, 𝓜𝓾𝓼𝓲𝓬. I don't remember the title of the book, but maybe that's the author. And then also 𝐑𝐞𝐼's Grow It. And that was the first time I even knew about 𝐑𝐞𝐼, because then I got the book too. And she's been here on my channel a few times. Hi 𝐑𝐞𝐼, if you're watching. KimmayTube was the one who introduced me to her, and she read the book and started to apply those principles. And KimmayTube also popularized the pH balance of products. Now, I don't remember anyone doing pH strips before KimmayTube. And if they are, then, you know, maybe I just didn't have a wide range. But she created her own leave-in conditioner. Like sometimes if you YouTube KimmayTube's leave-in recipe, you're gonna find videos from way back then, like 12, 13 years ago, where she combined different products and then created a pH balanced leave-in conditioner. She made this very popular, and it was pretty cool because the philosophy of KimmayTube was making a predictable regimen. She wanted to predict how products would affect her results. So if she wanted a more stretched look, she would apply, I believe, shea butter to her hair in order to get a good stretch, as opposed to applying her moisturizing leave-in conditioner, which would give it more of a curl. As someone who had the lifestyle of her in terms of a career, family, and all these things, it was important to her to ensure that she could show up and know how to show up without her hair coming down with some amazing surprises like some of our hair has done in our natural hair journeys. KimmayTube had a clinical approach to her hair care regimen, and so one of the things she taught was about predicting your hair growth, and she again did that through documentation. So as she continued to stay consistent with her regimen, she could also predict how much her hair would grow after a certain amount of time. And this of course gave her freedom to switch things up and knew how to troubleshoot in the event that she lost some hair. That just kind of took away the veil of darkness that surrounded natural hair at the time, because now our hair was no longer a mystery if we took the time to experiment and discover all of the gems and treasures that it has waiting for us to find. So here's what KimmayTube did with her hair. She was pretty consistent. So how she started years and years ago is how she finished, and maybe added on some extra bonuses. But she believed in regular washing and conditioning, protective styling, minimizing breakage, and detangling using tools in moderation or sparingly and carefully. So that was her philosophy. And she added some newer principles later on top of these these things where she introduced the concept of recycling parts. She also had a series going on where she taught you how to style your hair for an entire week once you're in a maintenance regimen, because I do know at one point she stopped focus on growing and then more on maintaining. So there was a happy length that she ended up finding. And then another thing she taught, which nobody talks about this as visually as she did, but she taught about the 5 levels of protection, teaching that protective styles are not enough. And so the first level, which was the one that was most intense, was breakage. So that's why protective styles are good for that, because it keeps your ends tucked so that your hair doesn't break off. But the second level, which is less intense than breakage, but definitely is, are tangles. And tangles and knots. And then after that, dryness. Beneath that, dust and debris. And then underneath that, UV damage. So UV damage from the sun and dust and debris was those other 2 layers that a lot of people don't talk about, because when your scalp becomes piled up with dust, debris from sticking to your oils like your sebum and stuff, that actually clogs your scalp and it prevents follicles from pushing up and growing out, and you have a problem where your hair can't freely grow up and out. And then dust and debris can contribute to oxidative stress on the scalp as well. So she touched on these 5 levels: breakage, tangles, dryness, dust and debris, and UV damage. So after this lovely recap of one of my favorites, what does a suggested KimmayTube regimen look like? If this is something you want to adopt, wash your hair every 7 to 10 days. Condition each wash day, and then deep condition every 2 weeks or as needed. Protective style 85 to 95% of the time, leaving those glam styles or expressive styles for special occasions. For trimming, you would use the seek and destroy method and do regular knot auditing. And lastly, for detangling, finger detangling would be the best way to go, and one method that she came up with is called the HARP method. You can actually see me do this method in the video that I posted some time ago where I talked about being prepared for when you neglect your natural hair. Well, in that video, I had neglected my hair for some time. It was very tangled, and then I used the HARP method to detangle my hair. It never fails me. I never have to go with a comb or anything like that. However, I would not recommend the HARP method for anyone who's taking down a protective style that is 2 weeks old. Anything past a week, you got a ton of shed hairs you have to get out of your hair. So I recommend using a detangling brush or comb, but be again very gentle. So that is all for Sis, how do you grow your hair? KimmayTube again, if you're watching, thank you for your influence and impact on the natural hair community. I know so many of us were thankful for you and the work that you put in. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Try to guess in the comments below, but I look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode of Sis, how'd you grow your hair? I can't wait till I'm actually one of the episodes. Yes.